SpaceX missions sound like they're straight out of a movie. Recently, the company has been working to improve its fairing recovery process, and you're sure to be amazed by some of the awesome techniques they've been using. If you're wondering how successfully they've been reusing their fairings, you've clicked on the right video, because we're going to cover all that and more today. Let's dive in. First off, how's SpaceX improving their fairing recovery process? The first plan was to catch these things as they fell back to Earth by using ships with nets. If you think this plan sounds like the coolest thing ever, we're going to agree. Sadly though, this plan didn't prove to be sustainable at all. The problem was the ships had a very low success rate of catching the fairings in time, with it being about 20%, so it just didn't seem worth it. Plus, that's not all. Sometimes when the net did catch them, it'd tear with such damage it couldn't be repaired. Not very cost efficient, is it? But they've changed their strategy. Now they simply fish the fairings out of the ocean after they splash, and it seems that the strategy is working fine. After a year of solid success with this method, SpaceX has once again started playing around with a more improved recovery operation for rocket parts. It seems the company plans on ditching the entire concept of catching the fairings in time with vessels like Mrs. Tree and Miss Chief. Instead, they've now introduced new multi-purpose vessels, Bob and Doug, which make use of cranes, and this seems to be the best method yet. Next up, why did they make the switch to using inflatables with nets and cranes? The new system, which makes use of vessels Bob and Doug, consists of 3 inflatables with a net tied between them. SpaceX recovers the parts by placing a ship with a crane in a calculated location for the recovery to work properly. The reason for this new improvement is clear. The technicians don't have to go down in the water to attach the fairings to be lifted by the crane anymore, which can sometimes be dangerous. After the part splashes into the sea, the recovery ship would then approach and launch the crane. It's then attached to the crane by workers on the fast boat, lifted aboard the ship, and carried back to land. The company first used outsourced vessels beginning in March of 2021, but eventually created their own unique vessels for the job in August of 2021. And if you're wondering why inflatables are being used for holding the net, well, it seems they're designed this way to avoid damaging the fairings. The inflatables help prevent them from coming into contact with each other. While it's certainly yielding some good results, it seems that the new rig is still under testing. It's yet to be used on a real operation. Moving on, why do they need to recover these things in the first place? Let's just say that building a rocket isn't very cheap. All the parts must be perfect for the rocket to launch properly, and that includes the fairings. The company's main aim in improving their recovery process is to reduce its launch costs. The more of these that get recovered, the more they can be reused. The method they had in place for recovering the fairings previously was yielding some good results, but there was still a big issue in terms of cost. The main problem was that salt water is corrosive in nature, so if it plastics in the ocean, it has to be repaired before reuse. While this was better than losing out on the thing entirely, you can see why the company thought there was room for improvement. The new crane method is great for this very reason, as it's able to get the fairings out before they're damaged too much by the corrosive salt water. Lastly, with all these improvements, how much better has the recovery process gotten? Sources from the company state that almost all of the fairings launched between May in 2021 and June of 2022 have been recovered successfully, which is quite literally awesome. And these are now regularly flying on multiple missions consistently, and it's quite rare to recover one of them in a damaged state or to not find it at all. According to the current confirmed reports, a pair of half fairings have been reused a whopping 6 times. It seems SpaceX takes the reduce, reuse, recycle model to heart. A recent example of the company not being able to recover one was for the Starlink 425 mission, and this happened for the first time since 2019, but there's a good reason behind it. One half of it that flew on the mission may have flown for the 7th time, and if that's true, then their decision to abandon this fairing makes sense, and they've definitely got enough use out of it. They've now gathered quite a large collection of fairing halves, all thanks to its recovery program. These halves will be occupying a lot warehouse space, and as the Falcon 9 halves age, it may become a regular thing to see SpaceX use the oldest ones. Now in other news. First off, an Australian man finds a large object on his sheep farm which fell from the sky. Last week, an Australian man was diving to his farm when he came across a sharp black object that appeared to be taller than 9 feet. He thought it was a burnt tree or a piece of farm equipment, but surprise, surprise, it was space junk. Mr. Miners took a photo and forwarded it to Jock Wallace, a nearby farmer who'd also found a curious object on his field a few days before. NASA announced in a statement that SpaceX found out that the item was most likely the last piece of the Dragon spacecraft trunk segment from the International Space Station in May of last year. They also announced that if someone thinks they've located space junk, they shouldn't try to handle it or remove it. Equipment in space that stops working is known as space trash. Usually, most of the space debris burns up when it enters the atmosphere, and left over frequently falls into the ocean. Astrophysicist Jonathan McDowell of the Center for Astrophysics in Cambridge, Massachusetts, said it's quite common for a small portion of debris to fall on the ground. This usually happens when the entry of junk into the atmosphere is not controlled. However, if more spacecraft, including those from privately owned companies, enter orbit, the chances of space junk falling on land may increase. And we shouldn't have to explain why. That's a huge problem. Next up, James Webb Space Telescope captures an incredibly detailed photo of the Cartwheel Galaxy. NASA has just shared some more breathtaking pictures taken by James Webb Space Telescope, and people are simply in awe. These highly detailed photos have offered a new perspective on the Cartwheel Galaxy, which had previously been spotted by the Hubble and other telescopes. According to NASA, the telescope has been able to provide new information about both star formation and the galaxy's central black hole, which is located approximately 500 million light years from Earth. We can't even imagine how far away that must be. JWST used infrared light detection to see through the dust that prevented other telescopes from seeing the galaxy. The image was created using data from the near-infrared camera and mid-infrared instrument on JWST. Higher resolution versions of the image are available on the JWST website. Incredible, right? Well, the images captured by the telescope are in black and white. Colors are added in the post-processing of the pictures. MIRI was able to learn more about information about the galaxy's dust. It discovered areas that are rich in various minerals such as silicate dust, which resembles a lot of the dust on Earth, as well as hydrocarbons and other chemical components. These regions create a number of spiraling shapes that gave rise to the name Cartwheel Galaxy. The shapes were previously visible to Hubble, but the JWST observations show them in far greater clarity. With technology continuing to advance, we can't help but wonder how much more of the universe we'll get to see in the future. Lastly, SpaceX's Starship reaches a new milestone with booster static fire test. SpaceX successfully tested a static fire test of a prototype Super Heavy rocket late Tuesday afternoon. The Booster 7 was transported to the launch site overnight on Friday. The successful test is a notable milestone for the company, as they had been working on the project for a long time from their Boca Chica development facility in southeast Texas. Only a few weeks earlier, a booster test went wrong, resulting in an explosion at the launch pad. Instead of firing all 33 Raptor 2 engines, just one Raptor 2 engine was fired during the test, and the entire test only lasted a few seconds. Engineers can gain a fair feel of an engine's performance before a launch by doing a static fire test. This helps the engine spin up to ignition, but the rocket remains on the launch pad. The two-stage Starship is made up of a Super Heavy booster and a 164-foot tall upper stage called Starship. The launch system, which is 394 feet in height, is designed to be fully reusable. Is it just us, or is real life and sci-fi becoming the same thing? And that's a wrap for this video. Are you impressed by SpaceX's unique techniques to reuse their fairings? Show some love and give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.